Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
You know what's on the horizon?
Yeah, I kind of do. It's Modern Horizons.
This set looks like it might have as much impact on Modern as War of the Spark.
And we've only scratched the surface, right? There's at this point there's like 40 or 50 cards, and already there is no shortage of bangers, right?
But War of the Spark was a high bar, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm. So, kind of want to just dive in and start talking about this, the cards in this set with 40 keywords.
Okay.
What do you think?
Can I start one?
Yeah.
This card is, I think it's bazonkers, right?
I don't know what it is.
Ice-Fang Coatl.
Okay, so for a blue and a green, you get a snow creature snake. So you get a 1/1 flash flying. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So 1/1 flash. So I think 1 and a green for a 1/1 when it enters the battlefield, draw a card has shown up. Now that was an elf, which is better than snake, but maybe snow is better than not. Who knows, right? And then the fact that it has flash and flying. Yeah, I think a 1/1 flying flash when it enters the battlefield, draw a card is better than Elvish Visionary.
And Elvish Visionary is good enough to play in large formats. We've already established. But that's not the end of Ice-Fang Coatl's text box.
Go on.
So, in addition, Ice-Fang Coatl has the following, let's say, banger of a sentence. Ice-Fang Coatl has Death Touch as long as you control at least 3 other snow permanents.
Which I do.
Yeah? Is it 3 other Ice-Fang Coatls?
No. Snow-covered island, snow-covered forest, snow-covered tropical island if they get their act together. No, I'm just kidding about that one.
So,
unless you say yes.
I don't know anything about this snow-covered tropical island, but they
it's not real.
Are reprinting the Snowlands. That's a true story, and they're reprinting ways to get them into play in an economical way. But first of all, I think this card is probably pretty powerful, and second of all, I chose it to start because it does have approximately 1,000 keywords on it.
Yeah, it's pretty short. The gaining Death Touch, as long as you control at least 3 other snow permanents, makes this pretty quickly into a cantrip Terminate.
Yeah, because of the flash. So, assuming you have the Death Touch, which I guess it's not an assumption all the time, this is comparable to cards that are at least one point like legacy staples, right? Is that fair?
Definitely, still are. Vintage. The Strix, the black-blue one, gets played in Vintage.
So, this guy, assuming you have the snow permanents, I think that it compares favorably to Baleful Strix, although it's tough to have 3 other snow permanents on turn 2.
Well, it's also it puts a tax on you because your Treetop Village or Lumbering Falls or Breeding Pool, they're not snow-covered. In fact, even this new cycle of 5 enemy-colored horizon canopies, Fiery Islet, Nurturing Peatland, Silent Clearing, Sunbaked Canyon, and Waterlogged Grove, there's this cycle of 5 horizon canopies that don't include horizon canopy. And it's
why would they?
And they're not snow-covered. So if you use these, you're not going to have snow-covered land. But there is actually the sickest snow-covered duel ever.
Ever.
Prismatic Vista.
I feel this card is like close to too good to print.
Well, it can't get Shocklands.
Yeah, that's true.
This is a fetch land, the defining fetch land. This is a fetch land. Talk about an instant, super expensive rare, by the way. Like a Snapcaster Mage or whatever. This rare is...
Bang, add 4 to your collection. That's what this card says all over it.
But it's a fetch land that can only get basics. So it can't get shock lands, which is a big deal. But, like, getting basics is pretty dope. And it can get basics of all three of your colors. I don't think it's going to just, like, replace fetch lands in Modern. I think in Modern it's just so valuable to be able to fetch up shock lands. But I think there's a lot of decks that are really into fetching basics. And in particular, if you were going to play 3 colors of snow, you see, like, Misty Rainforest can go get Snow-Covered Island or Snow-Covered Forest, but you can only play 4 Misty Rainforests, and then any other fetch land you play wouldn't be able to get both Snow-Covered Island and Snow-Covered Forest. However, Prismatic Vista can. So now your blue-green deck can have 4 Vista, 4 Misty Rainforest, maybe a breeding pool or 2, and then a bunch of Snow Islands and Snow Forests.
What was the name of the card that was before Evolving Wilds? It's like functionally the same as Evolving.
Terramorphic Expanse.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw that card, I thought that, wow, this card is so good and so powerful. And obviously Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds have seen play, certainly like mid amount of play in Standard and in some other formats. But this is just like, it's just every Evolving Wild wanted to grow up to be a Prismatic Vista, right? Like, just give me one life.
It's kind of like, it's the difference between Coastal Tower and Flooded Strand. Like, do you think Flooded Strand is more powerful than Coastal Tower?
Yes, I do. And I think that the secondary market costs on those would back me up.
Prismatic Vista is that much more powerful than Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. So yeah, I think Ice-Fang Coatl seems real strong. We'll have to see what other snow-covered support there is, but it's definitely a card to watch.
So you mentioned Sun-Baked Canyon, right? So Sun-Baked Canyon,
I know that's a card that speaks to you.
At least in theory, it speaks to me. But I've been thinking about this card all day. I know, go figure, right?
This is the red-white Horizon Canopy.
Yeah, so it's, tap for a red or tap for a white, and then but you pay a life, right, when you tap for a red or a white. So you can't tap for a colorless for free. So it's in that sense worse than a Battlefield Forge. But it has that additional ability, 1 in a tap, sacrifice Sun-Baked Canyon, draw a card. There are a fair number of decks that they're not even base green-white necessarily that are packing 4 Horizon Canopies because that functionality is so strong. Do you think this card is going to become like an instant 4 of in the burn deck in Modern?
I think it's worth trying. You would know better than I of how often you can afford to take that extra damage.
It's a weird tension because on one hand, I've just focused the last couple of years on not taking extra damage from my lands so that I win a lot of tight races that people who have, maybe just even one Stomping Grounds in their deck might lose that race. But at the same time, like, you just don't lose to flooding as often, which is such a strong incremental functionality. Maybe 4 is the wrong number. Maybe you just play like 1 or 2. But this is certainly something I've got my eye on. Caveat, if you're going to like 19 lands, which a lot of the burn decks in Modern right now are down to 19 lands, you have less space for a card like this. So I think this is actually kind of a tester.
What do you think of the blue-red one or the black-green one in Death Shadow?
I think that I really like the possibility of playing some of these with Death Shadow. I was thinking if there was a black-red one, I might be really, really apt to test that, but it doesn't look like there's a black-red one in this.
No, it's just the enemy colors. But if you're playing Grixis Death Shadow, you can play the blue-red one. And if you're playing Jund Death Shadow, you can play the black-green one. I'm
way more into the black and green one, just because like the blue-red one doesn't tap for black. Is that dumb?
No, I don't. I think it's really hard to get to a place of being willing to play with lands that are not tapping for black in that deck.
Like, so many of the cards in that deck are just like Thoughtseize, Inquisition of Kozilek, Death Shadow. You're operating oftentimes on like maybe 2 lands in play. Like, you've got like 1 land to do your proactive thing, which
the thing is, Oh, good.
Yeah, it just ends up being like one casting cost worth a, Gurmag Angler, or one casting cost worth a Death Shadow, and you've got like one land open for, a one casting cost counter spell or a removal spell. And I think like
that's actually part of what I like about the blue-red one. It holds up both Lightning Bolt and Stubborn Denial, and it's hard to play lands that don't make blue. Because aren't all your cantrips blue?
Yeah, it's a new world, and I think that's kind of the point of this set, which is like they're upending Modern. I mean, we talked a little bit last week about how upended Modern is already with War of the Spark, but
I think this is already more upending. Just what they've shown so far.
Change the world. I mean, here's a card I think that might speak to both of us. Maybe speaks to you from some years ago and speaks to me kind of some years ago. And a lot.
Don't be Lightning Skelemental. Don't be Lightning Skelemental.
Of course it's Lightning Skelemental. What kind of question was that? I think this is like the sickest card ever. I hope it's good enough to play. I'm not sure. It seems awesome though, right? So black, red for a creature, skeleton elemental, trample haste 6/1. So it's like got the ball lightning body, similar to the ball lightning cost. But then it has the additional text. Whenever Lightning Skelemental deals combat damage to a player, that player discards 2 cards. It's like a Blightning Skelemental.
Right, but it does double.
Yeah, it does like the same casting, similar casting cost of Blightning. It does like a walloping 6. I mean, granted, it can be lightning bolted and stuff, but I'm not sure. Like, I'm so into tight casting costs in burn type decks, and this is the opposite. It's like the loosest casting cost I'd ever consider. 3, all of its specific colors. What do you want from me?
Dude, I want to Collected Company some Lightning Skelementals. That's what I want.
Oh man, you would have to change your play pattern.
What are you talking about? My play pattern's all the play patterns. I'll jund. I'm into it. Lightning Skelemental with Collected Company. Yes.
So if you cast it during your opponent's end step, right, it's already past the beginning of their end step. So he's going to live to your attack.
Yeah, that's true.
That's some kind of waylay nonsense.
Yeah, that's why I don't think you necessarily have to change your play that much. But what you can do is Culligan's Command back your Lightning Skelemental.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm in love. But this is some big casting costs. I don't know. That's like 3 and 6 mana. I don't know. Maybe it's worth it. This is a big banger.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
How did you know it was Lightning Skelemental?
Dude, I've known you since we were wee lads. All right, so in a completely different sort of pacing, what do you think of Factor Fiction?
How did you... That was literally the next card I wanted to talk about. I think Factor Fiction is going to be the way to go. That's actually my current read. We already were talking about how good some of these Azorius Planeswalkers are in Modern right now, like the Narset at 3, the Teferi at 3. Factor Fiction does so many things, given that context. Number 1, it does not draw cards. How important is that? Does not draw cards. Puts the cards nicely into your hand. Second of all, this is like the card that if you are practiced or real good or know the format or know your deck, you have such a huge advantage against somebody who doesn't fill one of those boxes. And like slight errors in Factor Fiction splits determine the outcome of tournaments. Or at least they did back in the day.
How much do you think it matters, the synergy between Factor Fiction and graveyard strategies or graveyard cards?
It could matter a lot, right? Depending on what your color combination is. Like, for example, if you do a Factor Fiction that involves a Lingering Souls, that's an interesting question, right? That your opponent's going to have to evaluate. In terms of like more just direct graveyard strategies like Gristlebrand or Dredge, I don't see that as much. I think like incremental card advantage graveyard stuff I see a lot with Fact or Fiction. But do you see something else?
What about clearing the top of your deck? You put 2 cards back with your Jace the Mind Sculptor.
You are so greedy, rich, and full of mana. Of course you could do that. But it's still, I don't know. I feel like you would play Jace the Mind Sculptor, right? But I think that the trend will be towards fewer than 4 Jace the Mind Sculptors, as we saw in some of the current incarnation of the Mox decks, in part as a result of Narset, and that Fact or Fiction is the perfect foil to Narset if you still want to be in blue yourself.
And how do you think Fact or Fiction compares to Scour All Possibilities? Scour All Possibilities is the preordain that has flashback. It's 1 in a blue, scry 2, then draw a card. Flashback, 4 in a blue. So for 1 mana more than preordain, and keep my preordain as busted, right? It's like
just banned everywhere.
Well, no. Yeah, you can play 4 copies of it in Legacy and Vintage. It's the one you can play in Vintage because it's 1 step below Ponder.
By everywhere, I meant Modern.
I see. Yes. So it's banned in Modern. So you get a card that's banned in Modern, but you have to pay 1 extra. But in exchange for paying 1 extra, you can flash it back for 5.
I think
so. It's like a supercharged Think Twice if you don't mind the sorcery speed.
I mean, the sorcery speed is killing me, and I think that the flashback 5, you got to be in a weird spot that's what you want to be doing with 5 mana. I mean, who draws a card for 2 mana at sorcery speed? This is not where I want to be.
Okay.
This is really where you want to be. I mean, we can be opting, Patrick. We can be opting. Opting makes Terminus go.
Okay. You know what else makes Terminus go? Exclude.
I love with a capital L exclude. I can't imagine this is really good enough for Modern, though.
I can.
Yeah? Really?
Yeah. Yep.
You can imagine it, but you can't really gonna imagine it?
No, what's wrong with exclude in Modern?
It's expensive.
But, I mean, the counter spells are not exactly that good in Modern. I don't know. It draws a card, man. Counter triggered spell, draw a card. Like, what if you counter the Snapcaster Mage, man?
I guess.
Dude, all I want to do is okay, let's say that you're just blue-white. You might not have as much removal as, I don't know. Is it really crazy to play Exclude? I don't know.
I think so. I mean, like, I play a lot of Modern, and I think, like...
I'm not talking about a lot of Exclude. I'm just talking about...
No, I'm just saying, like, Modern to me is a format where, like... Obviously, the games with Tron aren't like this, right? But the games between, like, blue control decks with card drawing and burn decks and Death Shadow, they're all about really tight mana margins, right? You're like, I got to be deploying my mana in a super efficient fashion. If I'm spending 3 to counter something, even if I'm drawing a card that's cheaper than that, I might just be getting test spelled into something worse. And God forbid they have, like, a Spell Pierce. Like, that's kind of where I'm looking at it from. Like, it's so tight on the mana, I think. I mean, that's just my experience of the format.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's, like, very high on my list, but I'm interested, dude. Like, it's more efficient of a card than Electrolyze.
I guess it's more efficient than a Cryptic Command if you're just countering a creature.
Right. I mean, the big problem...
Nobody's going to say no to a Cryptic Command.
Right. The problem with Exclude is just that you can't cycle it, right? And as long as that's not too big of a problem, I think it's good enough. It's got a rate price to move. We'll see. I'm a buyer on Exclude.
I'm a doubter, and I would be overjoyed if I were wrong on my doubterness. How about that?
Sure. Okay. What about on the note of the blue cards? There's obviously the talk of the blue cards besides Force of Negation. Well,
let's just talk about Force of Negation.
Yeah.
Like, this is an important card, right?
Yeah.
So Force of Negation is 1 UU for an instant. And if it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost. And you don't even have to pay a life. Just exiling a card, right? And its regular text is counter target non-creature spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So you kind of have like a premium cost negate for a little bit better than negate's effect, but you can also force a will it.
Yeah, on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, you can use it as like a defensive negate on your turn only if you actually pay the mana.
Yeah, this card seems fine, pretty decent. Like, I know that there's some people who think this is just like the greatest thing ever, and then there's like a real backlash where there are people who are just talking about how they don't believe in it. I don't know. I think it's crazy to not believe that this is good enough.
Well, I think this card is really well positioned for how I think Modern is going to look right now. 2 reasons. One, if we're talking about these decks that are playing a bunch of 3, 4, and even 5 casting cost planeswalkers, those guys need to bridge into the turns that they play these reasonably powerful permanents against decks that are oftentimes far faster offensively than they are, right? So start there. Second of all, if you're going to lose a counterspell fight into like a Teferi, that's certainly possible. Maybe pitching another counterspell is actually one of the best things that you could do because you're at least getting some utility out of it. And I think like that's, all right, I might lose, but let's see. And so I'm actually mitigating my downside risk if I lose. And if I win, then you don't have your Teferi, and maybe I'll land my Teferi or my Karn or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, once you're talking about permanents like Teferi and Jace and so on that are like putting extra cards in your hand and with upside, I mean, Jace in particular is really good with Force of Negation. Just, because Teferi obviously untaps some of your land anyway, so you're not getting as much value, But Jace, one of the downsides is that you're kind of shields down, tapped out. Well, Force of Negation.
Yeah, also, this is a great pairing with Narset. I think this card is, pretty obviously good enough.
Oh, yeah, and here's some ways that I think it's going to be good besides just, you can play some of these in some of your counterspell decks. Yeah, of course. But what about a Merfolk deck, man? Isn't this card like an amazing sideboard, if not main deck?
Oh, so that's pretty cool. So Merfolk decks in actually most formats, right? Even Legacy, historically been like pretty like stompy type decks, not really like counterspell decks, even though they're blue. So this actually just takes advantage of the color of the creatures that you've got in order to gain some interaction against some decks that might be faster than you.
Dude, Force of Will is amazing in Legacy Merfolk. Of course you're going to Force of Negation.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Maybe that would make the deck. I don't know.
Plus, like, when you Force of Negation somebody's Anger of the Gods, but it actually brings up a good point. Supreme Verdict now has a real new purpose. You see, Supreme Verdict is uncounterable. So if how like for a long time it's just been industry standard to split stuff like Supreme Verdict and Wrath of God because you want to play your own Meddling Mage.
Day of Judgment, which is functionally the same because nobody has Regenerators or whatever.
Right. So if you have a new world where people are just Force of Negationing all over the place, I think you got it depends on how popular Merfolk gets because Meddling Mage is pretty popular right now, but I think Force of Negation is definitely an interesting variable for making Supreme Verdict rise in stock. But there's a second part of why it's increasing Supreme Verdict stock.
It's just blue.
Exactly. I think when you're playing a blue-white deck or a blue-white X deck, being able to pitch your Wrath of God to your Force of Negation, because that's exactly where you want it, right? Like when you're playing against somebody who just doesn't have any creatures, well, I would love to be able to pitch my Supreme Verdict there.
Yeah, it's outstanding. It's like you just gained 3 mana, right? Like you turned that should be dead kind of Day of Judgment effect into a Black Lotus, right? That's basically what you did against a deck that you might really need a bunch of fast mana because they're going to kill you on turn 2 or something.
Yep. So I'm in for Force of Negation.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, I'm like. Not in for Exclude, but would love to see it be good enough. I'm
a lot more in for Force of Negation and Fact or Fiction than Exclude.
Both of those cards are going to be awesome. I think Fact or Fiction is going to be 3 of plus in a lot of decks, maybe full 4 of.
It's so hard, though. I mean, Jace the Mind Sculptor is pretty great.
I think it depends. Like if the
It is nice to Snapcaster Factor Fiction though.
If people are like mono Narset, they're not going to be mono Narset, right? But if they're like heavy on Narset, Factor Fiction is going to be better at 4 than Jace a lot of the time.
Yeah, but Narset doesn't win the game. You need somebody to win.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, but Factor Fiction will certainly draw you in a way to win the game. And I'm not interested. Scour all possibilities. Not interested. No, sure. Thank you.
So as far as ways to win the game go, what do you think of Urza, Lord High Artificer? 2 blue, 1/4, and this is a throwback Urza. This is, obviously Urza's dead, but back in the day, 2 blue, 1/4, legendary human artificer. When Urza enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with +1/+1 for each artifact you control. And then ability number 2. Tap an untapped artifact you control to get a blue. And you can pay 5 to shuffle your library, then exile the top card. Until end of turn, you can play that card without paying its mana cost. So it's a... so for 4, you get a 1/4 that also gives you an XX right out the gate, right?
Yeah, like it's worst case, more or less, is like 2/5 over 2 bodies, right? Where one of the bodies is also like an elf. Is that fair?
Well, it's an elf with haste. Like you can tap it for blue immediately.
Yes.
Time is money. And that's not counting if you, say, have other artifacts. I mean, this guy's got like a Master of Ethereum thing going on. But instead of +1/+1ing your other artifacts, you can tap them for blue. And then it's got this Temporal Aperture ability. And so what's kind of interesting, there's a lot of things that are interesting with Urza, but one thing you can do is combine Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek. You see, if you have Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek, Urza gives you infinite blue mana, so you can make infinite Thopters, gain infinite life. You can make your construct infinitely large, and you can also Temporal Aperture your deck as many times as you want.
Well, that's no fun for the opponent.
So, I mean, that's a pretty winning formula. And a lot of the cards you might just put in the Thopter Sword deck seem like they would work really well with Urza High Artificer.
So are you buyer on this guy for Modern?
I don't know. I have to think about it. Certainly interested in working on it. But there's a lot of things that could go wrong.
I think if everything's going right, like you've got some artifacts in play already. Yeah, they don't even have to be that great of artifacts, right? Or you've got, kind of a Thopter Sword combo, then Urza is pretty exciting. But that if you don't, right, and he's just kind of the 2/5 over 2 bodies with the haste elf, and then the play a card for free off the top, he might still be good enough, but it would be weird, right? You would have to have a pretty unusual matchup or board situation where that's a thing you'd actually want.
Yeah, I think you're going to want to be really into Urza if you're going to play with him. I think your deck has to be... You have to mean it, I think.
Mishra. Do you remember Mishra? I was a big Mishra guy. You had to be pretty into Mishra. You built your deck for Mishra. Instead of, Damnation, you played more... serrated arrows, stuff like that. Instead of regular card draw, you play Bottled Cloister.
So they actually showed 2 of the other Force cards of the cycle. Force, there's a Force cycle like this Force of Negation. They've shown 2 of the other Force cards. So first up, we have Force of Vigor. Force of Vigor is 2 green, instant. Destroy up to 2 target artifacts and/or enchantments. Right? So you've got that whole instant speed, dust to dust type of, destroy up to 2 target artifacts and/or enchantments. But if it's not your turn, you can exile a green card instead of paying its mana cost.
I can imagine this card being played, but I'm not super into it.
You're not really that into it?
No, not really. I mean, I guess you're getting 2, possibly, but I mean, I guess I can imagine a lot of situations where I'm tapped out and I want to kill something at instant speed that's troublesome for me. So maybe it's all right. but I think I can think of more situations where I just rather play different spells. Like something along the lines of a Destructive Revelry or an Ancient Grudge, depending on what deck I am, what my other colors are. If I'm mono green, I guess. I don't know. Like, do you think like a Tron deck is mono green? Like, they probably can't even support this card.
No, but here's the part that's tilting about this. Force of Vigor, just imagine how it lines up. Your opponent's got they got Karn the Creator.
Oh, there you go.
They go get Mycosynth Lattice.
Yep.
They put Mycosynth Lattice down. And you're like, yay, I can still get out of the artifact lock, right? Wrong. Mycosynth Lattice, all cards that aren't on the battlefield, spells and permanents are colorless.
Oh, that's the worst.
That's the worst. This card almost had some hope of, in some way, helping fix how much they ruined Modern with this Karn card. But whatever. We'll just wait until Karn is banned.
I mean, there's so many whack things with the Karn Mycosynth Lattice. Like, if you're playing a mirror match, like, I don't even know how this works, right? Like, do you just want them to play Mycosynth Lattice, and then you, like, disenchant their Karn by tapping mana in response or something, and then you play your Karn or something, and then they're locked? Like, that's, like, the dream, right? Like I'm going to get your Karn because you made your Karn into an artifact for me? Like,
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that can go on there, but the other Force card, Force of Despair. 1 black instant. Destroy all creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. And if it's not your turn, you can exile a black card instead of paying its mana cost.
It's like pretty situational. I mean, I'm just not into this card very much either. I think like the format might go in a certain way that you need to have this kind of stuff on demand, but there's just other options that I think I'm more into, like that don't have like very strict limitations.
So what do you think about this card versus Living End?
I think that Living End is, I mean, just from a meta standpoint, I think Living End is one of the most unattractive things you could be playing right now.
No, I'm just asking who knows what it looks like after all the cards in the set are out.
Okay.
How does this card line up against Living End?
It's obviously awesome against specifically Living End.
What about Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn? Like, for instance, your opponent threw the breaches it or whatever?
I could see that, sure.
That's not bad, right?
No. But it's pretty situational and, like, relative to what else you could be doing. Like, why is that better than... I mean, there are good reasons why, right? Like, for example, if they have multiple creatures in play, then one of the available instant speed edicts might not be able to get you out of Emrakul. But against Living End, you know, it's not necessarily the case that they're just going to wallop you immediately. Like, if you're the kind of person who wants to have global removal spells, you can maybe just go to your turn in Damnation or something. I don't know. And like this card is just really, really limited in scope. That's the thing. I guess it's just always a murder. That's not that bad.
It's not always a murder. You have to have it on time. It's a 3-cost Essence Scatter in that spot.
Yeah, and
it doesn't even stop their triggers, right? Their enter the battlefield triggers.
Yeah, I'm not super into this card. I mean,
what about this card with Eldrazi Displacer?
That sounds like a lot of work for a deck that's already got Eldrazi Displacer going. You did not do more to convince me. There are some wackadoodle red cards that I think are worth talking about, like that are actually pretty interesting engine cards.
Okay.
So what do you think of Fists of Flame? So Fists of Flame is 1 and a red for an instant, and it's got the text, draw a card until end of turn. Target creature gains trample and gets +1/+0 for each card you've drawn this turn.
So right off if you do no work, on your turn, you're giving it +2/+0 and trample and drawing a card for 2.
Yeah.
Not good enough, but not that far off.
I mean, I don't think that's remotely good enough for most conventional decks that want to attack in Modern, right? Like those.
What do you mean? No, not remotely good enough. I mean, if it costs 1, it would be good enough.
Yeah, but it doesn't cost 1.
No, so I don't think it's fair to describe it as not remotely. It's 1 mana more than would be an amount that you would play.
So I was thinking more along the lines of turn 2 getting a Gristlebrand in play, drawing 14, and then like pitching 2 Spirit Guides to make Fists of Flame, and then getting in there good with Gristlebrand.
What about if you're playing like Faithless Looting type stuff?
Oh, that's good.
What if you're playing Infect with a bunch of cantrips? Or what if you're playing with double strike creatures? Or what if there's some kind of a price to move Winds of Change type effect? You know?
Yeah, like you draw 7, and so this guy's going to be like +9 or something.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Any of those things would help it. Like the reason that I was
I bet this card's not good enough.
Even in the Gristlebrand situation?
Yeah. Yeah, when you have a Gristlebrand, this pump spell.
Yeah.
This pump spell is not necessarily the thing you need.
Get there, 21. Trample. It's more than 21.
Yes, I'm sure we can figure out ways to win when we have a Gristlebrand.
On turn 2.
What about Seasoned Pyromancer?
Yeah.
Luis's preview card. This is the 1/red Human Shaman. When Seasoned Pyromancer enters the battlefield, discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. For each non-land card discarded this way, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. And it has 3 red, exile Seasoned Pyromancer from your graveyard to create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. So, it's a 2/2, and then it Faithless Lootings the bad way. You know, like you discard 2 cards and then you draw 2 cards. But as long as you discard non-land cards, which I don't think is the most, that's not the tallest order in Modern. You got lots of stuff. You didn't want to discard land cards anyway. You want to discard your dredge cards or whatever. For each non-land, so if you pitch to the upside, you end up with 4/4 across 3 bodies, one better than like than Hordeling Outburst, and then it also effectively flashes back. You have this sort of uncounterable exile it from your graveyard to get 2 more. So probably not the most part of its power is the backup plan of the make 2 more 1/1s, but it is good for grinding.
I think this card is pretty interesting. There's another aspect to it, I think, that is worth talking about. If you have no cards in hand, right, you can just play it and draw 2. That's not bad. That's like a divination.
Wow. That's really good.
That's really, really good, I think. And so that's just part of it, right? Like, I think, unfortunately, there's going to be a decent amount of the time where you end up discarding 2 cards and they're not both non-lands, right? So the worst situation is if you, like, cast this guy and you end up with, like, 4 lands in hand. That's not real exciting, because if you're just getting kind of a 2/2 for 3 and then you filter very, very badly, then the card is not exciting at all. I think it's very exciting when you're just like a 2/2 divination, and then it's like medium exciting when you're like 4/4 over 3 bodies. Like I think that's only okay, because we're talking about Modern right now. It's like in Standard, I'd be like, oh wow, that's very different.
Well, what about this in Humans?
Well, if you're in Humans, then you potentially not even paying the mana cost on it. It's actually probably pretty awesome in Humans, right? Like its power level is potentially greater than a Mantis Rider.
It's hard to use the bottom ability.
You might not be able to tap for enough of those colors. That's the thing.
I mean, maybe you use some baked canyons, or maybe it's just a half-baked scheme. But this card seems pretty dope. I mean, I just want to discard Lingering Souls to this, though.
Oh yeah,
either Lingering Souls or any of the various Phoenix Eye, or I mean, there's a lot of possibilities in that space.
I mean, like maybe there's a Black-Red Phoenix deck that's kind of a little bit slower, that's got this guy, and maybe Lightning Skelemental and Kolaghan's Command, kind of a grinding Phoenix deck. Maybe reminiscent of the deck that Jerry used, that Mardu deck, but like maybe a little differently focused, think that's possible?
What about this guy in Legacy? I'm going to discard Dread Return and whatever I want to reanimate with Dread Return. And this gives you 2 tokens, so you can Dread Return immediately.
Oh, wow. So it's like a 1-card combo deck.
Right. I think if you just have this, it gets your Dread Return and it does everything. It does every part you need.
That's pretty awesome.
And it's good with stuff like Bridge from Below and Cabal Therapy.
Speaking of Cabal Therapy, do you think the Therapist is worth talking about at all?
Well, I mean, there's nothing really new to use with him compared to like when we talked about him a couple months ago. It could be okay. It's just, I don't know. I'm not a buyer in this guy yet, but I'd have to see you'd have to be playing a pretty serious token theme.
I think you could be. Speaking of a pretty serious token theme, when I saw this card, I just thought of you. And I thought of you because of Pro Tour Secaucus back in 1999. The Deep Forest Hermit. What do you think about this cat? 3 GG for an Elf Druid at 1/1 with Vanishing 3. But when he comes into play, you get 4 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens, and squirrels you control get +1/+1.
This card's real strong.
I was kind of thinking like Deep Forest Hermit, Ice-Fang Coatl, and Momentary Blink. Is that too deep?
I don't know. I know that Deep Forest Hermit, it's like, you know what's better than a Deranged Hermit? Not paying the Echo.
Because
I mean, this is huge.
It's literally 9/9 over 5 bodies for 5 mana, right?
Yeah. Now, granted, you can already play like, what is it? Like, nobody plays the 4/4 that gives, it's the 8/8 that gives something else +4/4, right? With Soul Bond.
Oh yeah, the wolf guy, Silver Wolf or whatever.
Yeah,
the guy that they played in block.
So this guy, it's spread across some bodies, but if they kill him, I mean, you still have squirrels and stuff, but I don't think this is insane. But it could be interesting. I think you just really, to make this work, I think you got to be caring about the tokens aspect or caring about it being an elf. As long as either one of those is true. Or you just have a lot of squirrels. But I mean, like, whatever you're into.
So imagine this card just didn't have Vanishing 3. Do you think, I mean, obviously it would be stronger than it currently is, but would your rating change that much?
Nah. Nope. It would not change that much.
I agree.
One thing you got to remember, Vanishing interacts positively with Winding Constrictor or Proliferate.
Oh, because you take the counters off of the vanishing creatures, right?
Right. It's not fading. Yep.
Ah.
So that's pretty good. It's not the most important thing ever, obviously, because, at that point you've already done 18 with all your guys, but, like, whatever. What about Nimble Mongoose? Any love for the mongoose?
The goose?
The goose being loose?
Goose will be loose. So Nimble Mongoose is one of the classics. He's G for a 1/1 with Shroud. It's that's a downgrade relative to Hexproof, right?
Oh, definitely. But it's super nice that people are not going to be putting pants on this guy.
So at Threshold, which is having 7 or more cards in your graveyard, he gets +2/+2. I love the Goose. I played the Goose in block and extended. Where do they let me play it? Will I play it now? I don't know. Probably.
Dude,
he's really good.
I top-aided Worlds with the Mongoose in Legacy, man. This card is great.
Yeah, like not being able to be bolted. I mean, 3/3 Shroud is no joke, right? Like if it's just you get somebody on a clock and you could be hanging back with blue cards to defend the queen. It's funny if Nimble Mongoose is the queen, right? But it could work. I think this card's good. But this is a really great situation where like Ice-Fang Coatl is actually like the natural enemy of Nimble Mongoose, right? Like it's a Terminate that cantrip Terminate that can actually hit the Mongoose.
Yep. Yep. Yet another reason Ice-Fang Coatl is incredible. What about the other green one drop Spore Frog?
Spore Frog. So that's G for a 1/1 frog.
It's like the Kami, but in green.
Yeah, you can sacrifice it to frog. Yeah, I'm not super into this card. I mean, the Kami's seen some play, you know.
Right, but isn't I mean, green's kind of a better color for it in Modern right now, right?
Is it? I mean, I was like proclamationing the Kami.
Yeah, but nobody plays Proclamation right now, but they do play Court of Calling. And Spore Frog is a Court of Calling target.
I would be surprised if he does very much in the format.
I don't know about very much, but I bet he'll show up.
Do you think Spore Frog might be decent in Tron? Like some Tron decks play Fog, but this is like I said, potentially an attacker.
Nah. That's just that's a Fog that can be beaten by any kind of burn spell.
All right.
So besides, I don't know. It costs green mana, man. Here's a card that if you don't brew with, I'm going to be disappointed. Astral Drift. So it's an Astral Slide, 2 and a white. Everything the same as Astral Slide except 2 differences. First, it has cycling of 2 and a white. And this is to help make up for the fact that it doesn't key off of your opponent's cycling. Astral Slide always had that real weird, like everybody's Astral Slides count the other person's cycling. Well, this Astral Slide doesn't, which I think this is on the whole an upgrade over Astral Slide, but it's going to be less weird. So definitely a big fan.
So, I mean, we've got some cycling lands, right? We've got cycling deserts.
We've got a lot of cycling lands.
From last summer. We've got Light from the Loam. You don't need too many Eternal Witnesses and Primal Commands to have a deck already, right? Kind of builds itself.
Yeah, but there's also some of those... Yeah, I was going to say, some of the, drain them for 2 or make a 2/2 Drake... there's some strong incentives for cycling.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think of Dismantling Blow, man? Blow somebody else's Astral Drift up.
I was never a fan of Dismantling Blow when it was around the first time. I was just like, this is like an overcosted disenchant, and we came to some blows over it here in New York City, but the thinking and the Dismantling Blow camp was in the mirror match. You're talking like blue-white against blue-white. You would just hit your own stuff, and then you were turning your otherwise dead disenchant into a bad factor fiction. I think there's some merit to that, but I think Modern is such a fast format. I just don't want to be paying 3 for my disenchant. Although this does give it some credibility as a main deck card. That's the thing. Very few people are playing a lot of main deck disenchants right now. But if you've got some targets of your own, you can play this and get some card draw out of it. Any of those kind of cantripy permanents, you can some kind of Sabo's Web or something is really the thinking on those.
I think so. I love this card. I think it's going to see about as much play as it currently does in Legacy.
That's none, right?
Yeah.
It's very expensive, right? And
it is. It's just too expensive. What about the new Mother of Runes, man? Giver of Runes. So definitely a name that reveals how much effort went into naming it. Giver of Runes is white for a 1/2 core cleric. Tap, another target creature you control gains protection from colorless or from the color of your choice until end of turn. So compared to Mother of Runes, it has a 2nd point of toughness.
And a really important downside.
It can do colorless instead of just any color. Which is also the upside.
Yeah, but it's got a downside.
It can't target itself.
That is a big downside.
Yeah, but it's not that big of a deal. Mother of Runes, it was always so annoying that it would target itself.
But I think that was like a big part of why it was so great, right? Like if you had like Mother of Runes and another creature in play, it was very, very difficult to remove either creature, right? Because you basically have to be like, all right, try to kill their creature, and then they like tap to mother it, and then you would like, while the mother was tapped, and you kill the mother, right? So you'd always have to, use something up. This, you just like ting the Giver of Runes and call it a day.
If you have removal, and it's a 1-drop anyway, I bet this card is good.
Oh, for sure it's going to be playable. I mean, that effect of Mother of Runes is huge even in Legacy today.
I think this card's going to be really good. I think this card's going to be good in Legacy too.
Oh, 8-pack mothers?
Oh God, just mom. It'll be just like therapy. I don't know, man. I think Giver of Runes seems dope. I don't know that Core is that great of a creature type right now, but whatever.
Oh, I don't think that Core is any kind of creature type that anybody's interested in.
What about Wing Shards, dude? Target player sacrifices an attacking creature and it has Storm.
I always have the same memory whenever I see Wing Shards. And it was like very late in a PTQ. It was like round 9 or something. And I needed to get lucky to make the top 8. So I asked Patrick Sullivan to play the last round because he just needed to draw to make top 8. And oddly, he was playing red-white and I was playing mono-red. And he said there's just jokers left in the the 1-loss bracket. I'm like, that's good, right? He's like, no, because jokers don't play around Wing Shards. And I don't have Wing Shards. Yeah, this card's really good. You can if you have 3 attackers trying to get you, and you've got like an instant or another removal spell, you just get them. It's conditionally really, really strong. It's particularly great against haste and multiple haste attackers. Like if somebody has a guy in play and they play a haste attacker and they attack you with 2 things, like Wing Shards gets them both. I think it's not, the kind of card that you're going to see a lot of main deck play in Modern, but it is certainly an available tool depending on how the format shapes up. Because it's like you were saying before about, I guess an Emrakul is a bad example because you're still going to get mixed up.
Yeah, I don't think you want it against Emrakul.
But it's, stuff like, that Gristlebrand situation, something like that.
I don't know. It's still not good there. They drew all the cards they wanted, man.
Yeah, but at least they don't get the life back.
That's true. You know what's good against? Humans.
Yeah.
If you're playing enough cheap cantrips and stuff, overall, I think the card's going to be a little expensive. It's kind of nice that it doesn't give them the mana compared to Settle the Wreckage, but I think Settle the Wreckage is just so much more reliable.
Well,
so
if you got a lightning bolt and a Wing Shards, you can reliably take down 3 attackers. That's.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's possible, I guess, but I think it might be just a little short. Just a little short. Speaking of a little short, I think there's just no hope for Diabolic Edict. I don't know, man. I mean, maybe it's an instant, but Liliana's Edict is just so
better Diabolic Edicts left and right.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a great time for Diabolic Edict.
Speaking of which, Firebolt and Lava Dart. There are 2 storied red burn spells that have long and successful careers across many formats that are never going to see play in Modern.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think Firebolt will show up?
No. I don't think either of these cards is remotely good enough.
Really?
I mean, when do you have 5 mana in play?
I mean, I have 5 mana sometimes. I cast a fairy.
Dude, if the red deck has 5 mana in play, they're not going to have a consolation prize to deal 2. No.
You don't think anybody's going to Lava Dart with their Phoenix, get their Arclight Phoenix back?
I am not hopeful on that. I don't know. I think both of these cards have been good enough in the past, and there's just the quality of 1 casting cost red burn cards is so through the roof right now. You're just not going to want to do a 1 or 2. I mean, Lava Dart is basically deal 2 by, like, sacrificing a permanent, right?
Yep, but it can be split up at least.
I guess it turns on a Fatal Push. I mean, that's okay. I don't know.
Man. I don't think it's that good. It's worse than Gut Shot.
Neither of these cards, I don't think, is gonna be doing anything.
We're a Goblin Matron, and as a corollary, Munitions Expert. So Goblin Matron is a reprint from 7th edition, 2 in a red, 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a goblin, reveal it, and put it in your hand, and shuffle your library. So notably, you can Goblin Matron for more Goblin Matron if you are so inclined. Basically just 3 mana, 1/1, and Demonic Tutor for Goblin. Munitions Expert is black-red for a 1/1 flash. When Munitions Expert enters the battlefield, you may have it deal damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to the number of goblins you control.
Goblin Matron, first of all, I just want to note, huge upgrade on the art. This is a gorgeous piece of art, and that's not the kind of stuff that I normally call out. I think this card is, I mean, if there's a Goblin deck that's like a dedicated Goblin deck, it seems like this card has always been pretty strong, right?
Definitely.
I mean, especially if you're not paying for it, right? Like, if people are viling the Goblin Matron, it could be very, very effective, I think. If you're discounting the Goblin Matron, stuff like that, I don't know. There hasn't been a real popular Goblin deck in Modern ever. So that is just like a little bit of an asterisk, but maybe there would be. Separately, Munitions Expert seems awesome to me. Like, it's like low end is a flash, kind of like mini Flame Tongue Kavu, because it always does at least one, right?
Right. It's kind of like a Gem Palm Incinerator, but instead of drawing a card, you get a 1/1. But the 1/1 helps up the count already, right? So I think a 1/1 plus an extra damage is frequently going to be worth more than the card from the Incinerator, and it can hit planeswalkers.
Yeah, the other thing is, like, just imagine, like, you're fighting against 2 toughness. Like, you can just drop the Munitions Expert, ting for 1 toughness, and then block. Like, I think that's a thing it might do.
Yep.
And that's just very solidly in the range. And then obviously in a deck that has a bunch of goblins, for example, you're playing Hordling Outburst or something like that, there's a very, very high ceiling in terms of its mana to damage conversion. And Flash is just awesome.
Yeah. No, I think this is good. I guess there's 2 more gold cards that we've got visible here. One is Collected Conjuring, 2 blue-red, sorcery, exile the top 6 cards of your library. You may cast up to 2 sorcery cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from among them without paying their mana costs, and put the exiled cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. So
for 1 more mana, you're getting, like, basically 3 more mana, right? That's the conversion here. Like just like a real simple thing is, like, tap 4, turn over a Divination and a Blightning. Obviously that's, this is an illustrative kind of example, not a practical one. I think that would be a really good return for 4 mana if I were to turn those 2 cards over. And those are not even exciting Modern cards. This is very like a Collected Company. Well, that's part of it, though, is that in order to, how many 3-cost sorceries are you going to play in your deck? Are you really going to, think about how many creatures you would put in decks? I mean, granted, they don't have to all cost 3, but, it's hard to play that many 3-cost sorceries, right? Well, you don't necessarily just have to be doing 3-cost sorceries, right? Like, you can. No, but you're going to have. I'm saying even playing 12 is a lot. Of course, you can play some 1 and 2 cast sorceries also. Yeah, I think that the fact that you're not getting as much mana advantage over turning over 1 and 2 casting cost sorceries is counterbalanced by the fact that you basically got to draw them for free, right? I'm not sure how you would put it together, because in my imagination right now, I have a hard time putting together a reliable way to kill someone this way. But I can see it very much like Collected Company. As oh, wow, this is a pretty good progressive way to get ahead. The fact that it's a sorcery, obviously you're casting it on your own turn unless some kind of Teferi nonsense is going on. So it's limiting in that sense. But I don't know. It's certainly really interesting to me. I don't know how you kill someone with it.
The other gold card is Abominable Treefolk, 2 green blue for a 4/4 snow treefolk. It's a star trample. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of snow permanents you control, which includes itself. And when it enters the battlefield, tap target creature and opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its next untap step.
I thought it didn't need snow.
What do you mean?
I thought it was just like number of permanents you controlled.
No, it's snow permanents, man. There's snow permanents like snow permanents.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not into it as much anymore. I thought this was awesome.
No, I don't know. I don't think it's. I think even when you're getting a 5/5 trample that locks something down for a turn, that's not enough for 4 mana in Modern right now.
No way. Yeah, I just thought it was a snow permanent that was just like, oh, if I cast like a March of the Multitudes or something, this thing's like 100/100. But if it's not that, then I think it's nowhere near good enough.
Yeah. What about Martyr's Soul? 2 and a white for a 3/2. Convoke, and when Martyr's Soul enters the battlefield, if you control no tapped lands, put 2+1/+1 counters on it.
I mean,
so you need 3 creatures.
Yeah, it's just kind of cutesy.
Or some alternative cost stuff, some Springleaf Drum, Mox Opal type of time.
Oh, you could just drop it with an Aether Vial. It's not hard, right? I don't know. It just seems too cutesy to me. Like the decks that would want to play, what is it, like a 5/4 that doesn't fly for 3?
For 0 mana.
But not really. It's not 0 opportunity. Right?
Yeah, so you go turn 1, you play a 1-drop. Turn 2, you play 2 1-drops, and then immediately play Martyr's Soul. You lose 2 points of damage, maybe 3, and now you have Martyr's Soul as a 5/4 in addition to your other 3 creatures.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. That sounds pretty good to me. Like, what if you're playing Affinity, man?
You think this card's good enough to play in Affinity?
Like, you've got 4 Mox Opal. It depends on what the Affinity deck looks like. I don't know that Affinity is good enough to play an Affinity because of Karn. But, like, if we're just imagining, right, like, this card's great with Ornithopter, right? So, like, the amount of 1s, like, you do need to have something that's white to cast it. So I don't know what that Affinity deck looks like. But, I don't know. It's pretty big and cheap. It's probably better just for a like actual white Winnie deck, though.
Yeah, I was thinking about it like kind of like that elephant that people play in Standard, and it's just that's not an exciting thing for me to do in Modern. Like even the white Winnie decks,
5/4 for 0.
But it's like not really 0. Like I'm foregoing damage, or I'm foregoing something.
2 or 3 points of damage,
maybe. Right? Like,
okay.
What if my draw?
It's a spirit, man.
Yeah, but it's like, what if my draw isn't like some perfect draw? Then like I've just got this chunky 3/2 for 3 that I'm obligated to play because otherwise I don't have anything. I don't know. It doesn't seem like what I want to build my deck around or to include.
And that's fair. What about the Stream of Thought, man? Blue. Sorcery, target player puts the top 4 cards of the library into their graveyard. You shuffle up to 4 cards from your graveyard into your library. It has replicate 2 blue. So for 5, you can mill them for 8. For 9, you can mill them for 12.
I'm not into it, but I'm not into milling people very much in Modern. I know that there are some folks who are like really into trapping you when you use your fetch land. I think these folks might be into this card. I don't know. I think that like the kind of mini Felden's Cane is. Originally, I was just like, "Oh, is that the thing? Like we're streaming so that we can cane?" But yeah, I don't know, not doing anything for me.
Yeah, I think if it were an instant that could do the shuffle part for either player, so that like you could potentially use it as graveyard hate. I'd be a little more inclined, But
like, I mean, even if you're like doing
it's
stealth
cute.
mill, right? Like,
it's just so expensive to get anywhere.
it's just
Like you already have access. I mean, you can already mill 5 if you want.
5 cards for a mana, and then but you have to do it to yourself. Like it's just not going to get you anywhere.
What about 3/1 Changeling?
The fake Leonin,
Imposter of the Sixth Pride.
I don't know. I mean, you got to be really in it for changelings.
Is there any reason to be in it for changelings?
I mean, it's a goblin. It's an elf. Like, I don't know. Probably not. It's a human.
It's a rat.
Yeah, it's
a pack rat.
Wholly unimpressive.
You can just discard it to your pack rat.
Like,
yeah.
3/1 for 2 with like no relevant ability. Nobody is going to write home for that card.
We'll see. There's an amount of this stuff, man. Like, you got to remember, there's some weird niche tribal cards. Like, for instance, what about that card that gives all your dragons +3/+3? Like, that card's no joke, right?
If you got a lot of dragons in play, this is a dragon, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm in it even there.
What?
There's just stuff to do that's like, I would so much at white, I would just so much rather be in Astral Drift. I feel like Astral Drift speaks to me. We are on the same squad. Imposter of the Sixth Pride, Like Astral Drift, I'm just be like, yo, I got this life from the loam. I got this removal. I'm going to gain a bunch of life. I'm going to draw a bunch of cards. Imposter Sixth Pride, I got a 3/1 for 2. This guy is dead to everything.
Everything. You can't use that crib swap on him.
If I've got this other weird card, I've got a 4-turn kill. That's the all
right, dude. What about
I've got a 4-turn kill if I
Dude, that sounds good enough for Legacy. All right, what about Morophon the Boundless? This is 7 cost shapeshifter with Changeling. It's a 6/6 Changeling. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Spells of the chosen type cost white, blue, black, red, green less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. And other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1.
Well, you could name Elf, right? And then just play all your guys for basically free. Same for Goblin.
That's where your head goes to first?
I mean, I don't know. It is 7 to start.
Dude, what about you can play your slivers for free? Sliver Queen costs 0. Sliver Overlord, Sliver Mutant, all that. Whatever. Just play a bunch of slivers for 0.
Oh, that's way more fun than what I was saying.
Plus, they have no colorless mana in their costs, a bunch of them. You could play enough that just have none, and you can just play all your slivers for free.
I guess I can afford to pay 1 for my muscle slivers in that case.
No, I don't know, man. You might just want to draw your deck or something.
All right. That seems like an application. And I mean, I don't mean to naysay it because people do ridiculous things with high-end slivers, right? I remember the first time I saw somebody deploy a Sliver Queen and beat a Tricks deck. That was pretty impressive.
I don't know. It's a weird card, obviously. But I just want to figure out how to save as much mana as possible on that mana reduction ability.
Yeah, I mean, it's an enormously powerful ability once you've got Morophon the Boundless in play.
Wall of 1,000 cuts, because something had to bring up the rear. Chiller Pillar. Chiller Pillar is 3 and a blue, 3/3. As long as Chiller Pillar is monstrous, it has flying, and you can pay 4 snow to give it +2/+2.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty chill card. No big deal. Ponderous Mage, 3 blue, 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, ponder. Not good enough. Prohibit. What do you think about Prohibit here?
I've never been a Prohibit fan. You know, BK Broiler used to throw Prohibit in so many decks, and he's always loved it. You know, 2 for 2, it's just not what you want with a counterspell. And its high end at 4, when you're paying 4, is just so thoroughly unappetizing to me.
Dude, I just wish they put my disappointment with this card is that it's not in standard. I think in standard it could have been a role player. It might be okay in modern, but it's a little short.
I don't know. I mean, like, you'd rather play this than, like, negate. Like, the difference between this and negate is...
This card's not bad.
No, but, like, you know, the difference between this and exclude... Like, if you have, like, a kind of a love triangle between prohibit, exclude, and negate, I think prohibit is the one who's going home alone. That's... Like, I would rather have either of those other guys on my squad than prohibit.
All right. Headless Spectre's not good enough. Venomous Changeling's not good enough. Goblin War Party is probably not good enough.
It's pretty expensive.
Elvish Fury is not good enough. Savage Swipe is probably good enough.
Yeah, and some weirdo deck.
It's going to be a weirdo deck. The last one I wanted to talk about was Undead Augur. Black for a 2/2 zombie wizard. When Undead Augur or another zombie you control dies, you draw a card and lose a life.
Oh, this card seems pretty cool to me. Right? So it's a 2/2 for 2, which is, you know, scraping the bottom of the barrel with no other text, but it has other text. It's a zombie, which is desirable potentially, and a wizard, which is desirable potentially. And it has a doozy of an ability if you play it with zombies. It itself is a zombie, right? So you can probably play it in a context that's just like getting a little value from trading creatures, etc. And you could probably play it in an engine, right? So if you have an engine that's just like spitting out creatures that you can sacrifice for an advantage, maybe for 0 mana, you now have a card drawing engine. You know, maybe you have other triggers going on.
Yeah, I think it's we got to see what the zombie deck ends up looking like, but I think this is like such a smart addition to the zombie deck. I'm going to be excited to try building there.
Yep, fully agree. I mean, not for nothing, it's BB instead of like B1 or something, which you might see for a 2/2 casting cost zombie, and maybe it's all, you know, that's positive for like devotion, you know, if that matters.
Yeah, it could come to that. I think you're going to be able to play whatever color zombies you want. I mean, they're not really spread out that wide. I mean, who knows if you really want both blue and white zombies, but the fact that you get to play with basically just, I mean, not only do you get whatever dual lands you want, the fact you can play Unclaimed Territory and Cavernous Souls, you know, if you're willing to give up some of the spells, but you probably don't even need to. I think you just want to come out fast and aggressive and not try too hard with this guy.
Yeah, I think like the zombie deck could be skirting unfair because of this. People trying to defend themselves just in any kind of conventional way. Undead Augur is going to be in a position to help you just not lose to that, right? You're just going to keep assuming threats.
Yep. So, and then also Flusterstorm is in this set.
Clearly going to be awesome, right? That card is
definitely
awesome wherever it's been allowed to be played.
It is weird though that Flusterstorm and Force of Negation. There's a lot of the same thing going on. But what's your pick so far?
Faction.
Best card. I'm with either Ice-Fang Coatl or Prismatic Vista.
I like both of those cards very much.
All right, dude. And I like Fact or Fiction very much.
All right.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play Dredge, it's a jail or hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core I trapped in amber